Bonnie and Clyde may be the most infamous romance in the history of American crime, but their individual stints in prison were anything but romantic. In February 1930, only weeks into his romance with Bonnie Parker, Clyde Barrow was caught by the police after a string of burglaries and car thefts. After admitting to a number of his crimes, Barrow began serving a 2-year sentence at the McLennan County Jail in Waco, Texas, just shy of his 21st birthday, but he didn't stay long. On the night of March 11th, after Parker smuggled in a pistol for her new boyfriend, Barrow and 2 other inmates broke out of the jail. According to the Waco Times-Herald, when the jailer opened Barrow's cell to give one of the prisoners a bottle of milk, he was met at gunpoint with the chilling words, "Stick 'em up." The fugitives managed to reach Ohio before the law recaptured them. And while the judge presiding over the case had ordered Barrow's convictions to be served concurrently, after the jailbreak, Barrow was resentenced to 14 consecutive years behind bars. Barrow was also moved from the relatively cushy jail in Waco to one of the most notorious prison farms in the country, Eastham State. At Eastham State, Barrow quickly learned how brutal prison life could be. The prison functioned as a working farm, where prisoners were forced to run to and from the fields where they weeded and picked corn and cotton. If they didn't run, they were beaten by the guards. But the main source of Barrow's torment wasn't the physical labor or the guards, but his fellow inmate Ed Crowder, a large, tough 29-year-old robber who oversaw the dormitory where Barrow lived.
Think he's getting sweet on you, Clyde?
I don't know what's worse, the high rider's whip or the big guy's affections.
It was alleged that Crowder physically and sexually assaulted Barrow on a regular basis for months, and neither the guards nor his fellow prisoners intervened. For context, Barrow stood 5'7" and weighed 150 pounds, and he appeared to be so young that some newspapers even nicknamed him Schoolboy. He was no match for Crowder, but since all people have a breaking point, Barrow eventually had enough. He hid a lead pipe in his pant leg, lured Crowder into a bathroom, and crushed his skull. But Barrow would also escape any punishment for Crowder's murder, as fellow prisoner Aubrey Skelly willingly took the rap for the crime. A grand jury eventually chalked up the incident to self-defense. On top of the backbreaking farm work at Eastham, the inmates had little to eat that wasn't rancid and were always at the mercy of the corrections officers. The guards would stick naked prisoners into tiny tin shacks in the broiling Texas heat as punishment for bad behavior, sometimes even covering them in honey to attract bugs. While Barrow was considered a model prisoner, the brutality of the inmates' work and treatment led Barrow to cut off 2 of his toes with an axe, though it's unclear if he did it to himself or had someone else perform the deed. The authorities sent him to the prison hospital, and just 2 weeks later, in February 1932, he was paroled. But since Barrow had grown to hate Eastham so much, he, Bonnie Parker, and their gang raided it in January 1934, helping 5 inmates escape.
How did it happen?
Clyde did a nickel at East Ham. He knew the system, planted guns, ran it like a military operation.
Not long after Clyde's release from prison in 1932, he, Bonnie Parker, and a rotating roster of gang members began robbing banks and businesses, stealing cars, and kidnapping police officers. But in April 1932, after making off with 2 vehicles in Tyler, Texas, a posse gave chase and captured Parker and another member of the gang while Barrow managed to escape. Upon her arrest, Parker lied to authorities, telling them she'd been kidnapped and did her best to wait patiently for the grand jury to hear her case. Parker spent the next 2 months in the Kaufman County Jail, during which she wrote poetry, and her jailer would often allow her to sit outside on the lawn. And while Barrow's family visited Parker in jail, providing her with food and clothing, she was lonely, scared, and not too happy with her outlaw lover. She even promised her mother that she was through with Barrow. But in mid-June 1932, the grand jury decided not to indict Parker and she walked free. Neither Bonnie Parker nor Clyde Barrow would ever see the inside of a cell again. Following Parker's release from jail, the pair left a trail of dead law enforcement officers as they blasted and robbed their way through the American Southwest and the Heartland. By the time they were ambushed and killed on May 23, 1934, they were accused of at least 13 murders and numerous other crimes. As the pair blazed their path into the history books, Parker continued writing poetry, including the ballad of Bonnie and Clyde, which foreshadowed their deaths in the final lines. Someday they'll go down together, and they'll bury them side by side. To few, it'll be grief, to the law, a relief, but it's death for Bonnie and Clyde. While the pair was inseparable during their final 2-year rampage across the country, it didn't stop the Parker and Barrow families from going against Bonnie and Clyde's express wishes and burying them in 2 separate Dallas cemeteries roughly 10 miles apart from each other.